Hey everyone, this is Mike with One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing The Fellowship of the Rings, the trick-taking game, and disclaimer that I got a review copy of this one. In this trick-taking game, you play through different chapters from the Fellowship of the Rings story, 18 in all, although there is an extended play mode after you finish. In each chapter, you're given a selection of specific characters, each with goals they have to complete cooperatively within the trick-taking round. And after players get their hand of cards, they draft the character they think they can best complete. Characters will also have special powers, and they just play out a regular trick-taking game where players are playing cards. They have to follow suit if they can. And that's honestly all you really need to know, although things do get more complicated as the later chapters progress. So let's discuss 5 key things to know about the Fellowship of the Rings trick-taking game. So first, for my number 5 point, which is kind of a mix. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to throw this one in there, but I thought I'd mention it. And this is a sort of odd conflict in the game in that the trick-taking is pretty basic. There's a trick-taker with no trump suit in most scenarios, where you just follow suit if you can. There is a special ring suit that has to be broken to be led, kind of like the game Hearts, but except for the single one ring, which can sort of act as a trump and win any trick. There aren't really any other special rules with the ring suit. So for trick-taking veterans, this might feel a little basic. But then as you get into the later chapters and have lots of special rules in play and tons of different characters whose text you have to read, I think it might get a little bit too advanced for the trick-taking novice and have a little bit too many moving parts. My number 4 point is focused on the story and thematic integration in the game, and for my taste this is a pro, but it might not be for many people. So the chapters closely follow the core plot of the Fellowship of the Rings, which I am intimately familiar with, having watched the movies and read the books tons of times, and they have little excerpts from the novel to lead into each chapter. This is where the caveat comes in. If you don't know the Fellowship of the Rings and the Lord of the Rings story, this isn't going to be enough to really explain to you what's going on. For me, it was nice to see the little quotes, and I instantly knew like where we were, but for the novice, it might be confusing. But then the part I adore, and this is kind of for the Lord of the Ring nerd as well, is that the characters and their requirements and things are so thematically understandable in a varied way, and it's really fun. Like, look, Bilbo has to win 3 or more tricks because he's kind of a greedy old hobbit. Pippin and Merry have to win very few tricks, and they're kind of challenging to get through the scenarios, while Sam is more self-sufficient and he has a goal that's pretty easy to complete. And then characters like Celeborn or Galadriel or Gandalf or Tom Bombadil, who are supposed to be incredibly powerful, they have really easy goals and they're kind of just there to help the other players. So I don't know, for me, I just love the theme of this one along with the scenarios. I can like really feel like we're living the story and the characters kind of feel the way they should. But if you don't know all these stories as well as I do, you might not like that as much. For my number 3 point, I'm focusing on player count, and this is a pro with some caveats, just because I really appreciate how many ways this game works. So sort of the main ways to play the game are 3 and 4 player. We just deal out the entire deck to the different number of players, and you go and see how things work. Both these player counts work great. I will say that in scenarios, I find 4 player to be more interesting, because you're forced to use more characters and balance more objectives, whereas 3 player can be kind of limited. You might use the same characters each time you play a scenario, but they still work great. For the 2-player variant, you have a third player that's controlled by one of the other players with a pyramid like this, and only their frontmost cards are available, and as cards get fully uncovered, they get flipped and can also be played. And this does lead to some weird situations where suits are empty early, but then get refilled, so you can play out of suit, and then you have to play back in suit again. But we found it to be a fun puzzle. It does work really well, so 2-player has been quite a bit of fun too. And then for the solo mode, and I've never seen a solo mode done like this, but I could see it backported to some other games like The Crew. You have 4 hands of 4 cards, and you're playing just like a regular trick taker, but after each trick is played, everybody gets another card, so you kind of always have limited information. Again, it's going to be a little random and swingy because suits will be out before they're out, and then they'll come back in and all that kind of stuff, but I found it to be a fun puzzle without being too brain-burning. Not the best way to play the game, but it's awesome that they included a solo mode. You don't see that very often in trick takers. For my number 2 point, I'm looking at the characters with their objectives and powers, and I think this is great. I already mentioned this a bit in the thematic point, but each character has a specific goal they have to achieve. They have little powers that affect things, sometimes let them trade cards between each other. And this is, for me, basically a fun thematic evolution from things like the Crew's goal cards, where, you have to get this particular number, this particular set of tricks. But as you go through the chapters, you get so many more characters, and most of them can be used in the endless mode after you finish everything. And it's so fun and smooth to see these characters combined in unique and interesting ways, seeing how their goals kind of go against each other or jive with each other. And this mechanic is at its best, but also it's most complicated when you get into long chapters where you have a whole team of people, kind of like the Fellowship, and you're only using a certain number each chapter, but then they go away and you have to kind of like pass the chapter multiple times with different people, and you have to try to find the best combinations for your hand, for the current situation. Just a lot of fun, although again, it can get slightly complicated. And then combining with the character, my number 1 point pretty easily are the chapters themselves, because I love how wacky and wild and crazy the rules get in here. To show you a few examples, in Chapter 5, the forest suit that you've been using the entire time suddenly becomes an attacking suit that's trying to steal tricks from you. In Chapter 7, while you've been shepherding Frodo this entire time, suddenly he's undercover as Mr. Underhill, and you're trying not to win rings, whereas before you were trying to win them. It's just really cool and really exciting to progress through each one, and again, even when you finish, you can just mix everything together, basically, and play endlessly. So overall, if you are a trick-taking fan, you definitely want to check Fellowship of the Ring out. I am just absolutely adoring it. It's hard to say at this point because I've played The Crew for years and years, but at least at the moment, this is my favorite trick-taking game out there. I've just been playing it nonstop. Now, that being said, I still think this one is best at 3 or 4 players. For 1 player, I'd probably go toward 4 Northwood as my favorite, and for 2 player, probably still Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard. But yeah, this is absolutely amazing. If you like trick takers, I don't know why you wouldn't like this one, but you can go check out my video to see a little bit of how the scenarios play out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.